Mindcast. I'm Gavin and I'm here with Dan, and today we will be discussing the pros and cons of Windows 8, Surface RT, and the Surface Pro. To start out with, Windows 8, it's Microsoft's new operating system to replace Windows 7 after about a period of 3 years. With this concept, it was made to be for touch, and they did make it, however, for the desktop and not keep it separate. So we can go over the cons first, and the first one is no gadget bar. You want to take it from there, Dan?
Yeah, sure. The one thing I don't like about Windows 8, now some people might say it's beneficial that the gadget bar is gone, which would be the desktop widgets or gadgets as you would familiarize ourselves with Bing. Myself really liked those kinds of gadgets because I could have a clock or a calendar or maybe even the weather app on my desktop, and I just have the one-click look and it's right there. I don't have to go to the modern UI or Metro or whatever user interface Microsoft is calling it this week. I can just look to the side there, it's there, I can see the time, weather, so on and so forth. So I really think that since Microsoft got rid of the gadget bar, it's more annoying for me personally to perhaps go check what the weather is or see what I need to do on the calendar. It's all in the modern UI, as Microsoft calls it. I can't just go to the desktop and look at that stuff directly. I have to go right to the app itself. So while I do think it's beneficial for Microsoft to change that a little bit, I don't think they should have just gotten rid of the sidebar or gadget bar, whatever you want to call it. I don't think they should have gotten rid of it so quick.
Alright, I have to agree with that. Gadgets were something I used ever since Windows Vista. I thought they were cool on the side because I could see the time and a quick view of the weather along with the date with the calendar to see what day it was, even though I could look in the corner, and the CPU and memory usage. That was something I really liked, and there's hacks to actually get it back. When you have the Windows Server 2008 R2 workstation, the installer for that gadget bar will actually run under Windows 8. So the next topic will be no premium games.
I myself am not really much of a PC gamer or a casual gamer. I did play a little bit of the, I guess what they call internet checkers, the 3D chess games, and solitaire. I did play those, and I do believe Windows 8 does come with some of those games, but it doesn't come with a full-on, I guess you call it games for Windows experience. So it might have been a good, benefit for Microsoft to drop those kinds of games, because really, who honestly plays those games all the time? And it just takes up a lot of space for the media itself to try to install those games along the operating system when those people can probably go and play those games elsewhere or download them separately. So even though Windows 8 doesn't come with those games, I'm not really too, quote, butthurt that they're gone. But there are some games I did like from Windows Vista and Windows 7 and even Windows XP that I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed, what was it, Gavin, the 3D pinball?
Yes.
Yeah, I really enjoyed playing 3D pinball. That was like the top feature of Windows XP that I really loved. So overall, even though Windows 8 doesn't have a complete, buffet of games, I'm not really too concerned about that as much. Gavin, what do you think?
Something I did do under Windows 7 quite a bit was play Majog Titans. It's just something to waste time, and from what I know, I can't really find it in Windows 8, but going back to like XP, like Dan said, I did play pinball for days and days and days, and schools didn't block it, so that's what we played. So it is kind of a bummer games went, but if they're to save space, I guess we might as well do it, but at least have an option to install them back. Probably would have been smart, but I don't think they have that either. So the next thing is insufficient privileges.
Yeah, this one is kind of a touchy topic, more or less regarding to the privileges that applications gain when you install them, or if you're using the modern UI especially. Some applications that you download don't have sufficient privileges to, for say, do certain administrative tasks on your system without you having to go in and change those settings each time you open that app. And having administrative privileges on those apps, even though you're the administrator, it'd be kind of nice if Windows 8 would remember at least having those administrative privileges on those applications that you run, whether you're using the desktop applications in Windows 8 or using the modern UI applications. Would have been nice if Windows 8 could have came with support to uh, archive or remember or something to remember those credentials to run those applications administratively.
Yeah. So my part on it is when I'd be installing some programs, what it does is to access the start menu, which is the new touch thing. When I'd go to install simple apps, even like Skype, it says it doesn't have permissions to access the start menu folder to create a shortcut. And that's just kind of not right, and it doesn't make sense. Another example is I was copying a DLL file from one of my external hard drives to one of the folders in the program files, and it said I had no privileges. So I had to copy that DLL file to my desktop, then copy it in the program data folder, and it worked. Or program file, sorry. So I have my problems with it. And some apps, like for an example, is MobiText, are 1.1 release, which it does this under Windows 7 with domain access, but not normal Windows 7, is when you go to run it, because it sets a file extension mtxt in the registry, you have to be an admin, and even if you are the admin in your machine in Windows 8, you still get that error. So you have to go purposely run it as an admin. Same with Windows 7 domains. So the next thing, which is a pretty big topic, is no start button.
Yeah, the no start menu problem is probably the one of the biggest complaints I have heard all across the Windows community, from the most advanced users to the most basic of users. They're all mad that the native start menu is not found in Windows 8. Microsoft has come out and they have stated that they might be bringing back the start menu to Windows 8 in Service Pack 1. However, whenever Service Pack 1 comes out, we don't know. So there are a few hacks you can do. You can either go to the taskbar, superbar, or whatever they call it. You just go through there. You can go through your quick links, or let me check here. Yeah, go through your toolbars and click on new toolbar and make a programs folder from there, which kind of brings back the start menu a little bit, but it's not the full start menu that we've come to know and love from Windows Vista and Windows 7, maybe even Windows XP if you're familiar with that. So the company, what was it, Stardock?
Yes. Stardock.
Yeah, Stardock Software released an application called Start 8, and boy, I gotta tell you, they probably made a good chunk of change off that application, because it brings back the start menu that we have known and loved in Windows 7. You can customize it to look pretty much any way you want. It's got more functionality and more customization options than like the start menu natively would have on Windows 7 per se. But I think primarily, if people want to get back to the start menu, all they should do is go to stardock.com, find the Start 8 app, and hey, it's $4.99 for the full version of it. I recommend doing it because it will save you a lot of hassle and stress. And you can even disable the hot corners too. So even if you go to the corner of your screen to click on the start menu, you do not go to the modern UI. You go right to your start menus. You have program search. You've got links to your computer, your documents, your personal folder, all your applications too. So overall, I think if you are willing to spend the extra $5 to get the start menu back in Windows 8, I really recommend doing it. It can really save you a lot of time. That, and you don't have to pay some computer repair place so much money to downgrade to Windows 7. We just buy the start menu app, install it, and get the familiarity right back into Windows.
Yeah, so do you think that Windows 8 with removing the start menu does make a difference for people? Like my grandparents, for example, they do not want Windows 8 whatsoever. they just can't get the UI. And I've actually been selling computers recently, and people keep requesting Windows 7 and they don't want Windows 8. So that does kind of mean something. And then the Start 8, I would definitely buy it for the $5 price it is, and you can use it on all your Windows 8 computers. Now, some arguments I've heard from it is people don't want to really buy a third-party program when it should have done something that Windows should have had from the get-go, but they don't. But anyway, it's a good app to add on if you happen to need the Start menu. Although the new Start UI is actually pretty good, but if you want to use the Start menu, it's still there as an option. So the next one will be overclocking isn't the greatest with Windows 8.
I personally am not really much of a person that overclocks their computer. However, with what Gavin is saying, overclocking on Windows 8 is not exactly a fluid and smooth kind of process like you would see in Windows 7 per se, but it is certainly possible to overclock. But Windows 8 it doesn't really do much. I guess you could say it more or less confuses the operating system because it doesn't know exactly what to do with this abundance of resources, pretty much. So I'm really hoping that Microsoft can fix this issue with Service Pack 1, especially because there are a lot of people out there, like Gavin, for example, who overclocks their PCs and wants to get more for their buck, you know?
Yeah, my processor is actually an AMD Phenom 1090T Black Edition. It's a 6-core Black Edition that's made to overclock, although I really don't need to overclock. It runs stock at 3.2, but if I were to overclock it, I'd either have it 3.4 or 3.6. And Windows 8 just does not like it. If you overclock it, even probably 100 megahertz, it'll just crash. And then it was fine under Windows 7, it's just Windows 8, even with all the drivers and BIOS updates and all that good stuff. So that's just something that I've had problems with. I don't know, maybe other people with i5s or i7s might have better luck, but I don't. So anyway, the next topic is can't install a trial of Windows 8.
So with Windows 8, if you install it as a clean install via on a physical machine or in VMware or Parallels, for example, you don't have the option to, when it brings up the screen to put in the product key for activation, it doesn't allow you to skip that to install put the product key in after you install Windows and connect to your internet. You have to put the product key right then and there. If you don't have one, you're kind of out of luck because they won't let you install, what's the maximum? 30 days for a trial?
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a product key, or if you just want to try out Windows 8 without using that product key, you're kind of out of luck. They're kind of making you, upgrade to Windows 8 whether you like it or not, because if you use that product key just to, try it out on a VM or on a physical machine on a separate partition, per se, you're wasting that key. So if you don't know what you're doing when you want to move your stuff over to the Windows 8 machine or virtual machine, whatever you're using, you kind of spent the money to install a virtual machine only to either like it or hate it, depending on what your preferences are. So, like in previous versions of Windows, like on Windows 7 or Windows Vista, you couldn't skip the activation window whatsoever. So, if you buy Windows 8, you're kind of stuck using that product key. So, yeah, Microsoft is kind of shooting themselves in the foot with, forcibly making people upgrade or use that product key, either too early or not wanting to use it at all,
Yeah, my problem with it is if someone was to go had a disk from a friend or something, then of course Microsoft thinks it's illegal if you have your own disk. But if you're to go install it on your computer and you want to try it out for 30 days and then maybe buy it at that point, you can't do that. You're stuck on Windows 7 where you're forced to go buy a license, then come back to install it. So I do think it will be a problem for some people, but then other people will probably just pay up right there. And by the way, Windows 8 prices, What's the price on the basic Windows 8 right now?
Um, for the standard Windows 8, I'm not sure. I think it's around $119 for Windows 8, and I think Windows 8 Pro is around $199.
Yeah, so I'd be guessing like the same price as Windows 7 from the previous generation. But it's still a lot of money when they just got done with their $40 promo up until the end of February or up until the end of January. So this is another one for people who like to have a good-looking desktop is no Aereo.
So this is one thing that's really annoyed me personally. And for some people, it might be a godsend that Windows Aero is not. However, for me, I really loved Aero. I did. Um, and I don't really want to dig up old history, but it's probably the killer thing that made me love Windows Vista, even though Windows Vista sucked hard. Not, no offense to anyone that likes Windows Vista, but Windows Vista for the overall user community, it was terrible. However, for me, I really liked the look of Windows Aero, and I liked how Microsoft made it better in Windows 7. So I know Microsoft calls the desktop theme Aero, but to me, it's not. It's not Aero. They took away the rounded corners to match the modern UI, which really, if you think about it, it kind of looks like what they had back in Windows 2000, Windows 98. And it was that squared up, boxy theme. And with Windows XP, they got away from that boxy theme with rounded corners, and they did the same thing in Vista and 7 as well. But for some reason, Windows 8 does not get the full-on, or at least to me, full-on Windows Aero experience. And to be honest, I have searched far and wide to try and find a hack or a small third-party tool to bring back, the classic Aero theme. And so far, I have not found a thing to get it back. So, what are your thoughts, Gavin?
I liked it because it looked good. Windows 7 looks really attractive on the desktop. Windows 8, even with Start 8, does kind of look flat and not depth where it looks good. I like the fact that in Windows 7 and Vista, you could press the Windows key and tab and go through your windows, and you can still do it in Windows 8, but you don't get the same kind of looking at them one after another kind of feel. And then another thing I will note is in earlier versions of Windows, like Vista or 7, if it was an Aereo capable OS being home premium, you had to have a good enough graphics card of 128 megs for the graphics. With the default driver, I think it was like 32 or 8 megs or something.
Something like that.
Yeah. But in Windows 8, they purposely made it the default graphics driver 256 megs no matter what type of card it is. So they're kind of forcing Aereo upon you, and there's no such thing as a classic theme anymore to make how Windows 7 had it, to make Windows 7 look like Windows 2000. There's no more of that. It's gone. So
well, unless you're talking about running in high contrast mode, that's like the only close Windows classic theme you're going to get anymore in Windows 8. But you're right when you say that they're forcing Windows Aero upon you by not having the actual classic theme installed, or at least Aero Basic. And I know a lot of people hated Aero Basic, me included. I really hated Aero Basic, but for some people it was nice to have that because it reduced load on your graphics card.
yeah. So the next topic, which we already kind of went into, is the no classic theme. So do you think we need to go into that or just skip it?
Yeah, we can probably skip that. We kind of covered that a little bit,
Alright. So then the next topic will be only one sound theme.
Yeah. Gavin kind of pointed this out to me the other day while we were having a quick chat about this. If you install Windows 8 natively without upgrading from Windows 7, you don't get the additional sound themes that Windows 7 has, like
Cityscape.
Yeah.
That's the only one I can think of.
Yeah, there was that. There was Calligraphy, I think was one of them that was called.
Yeah.
But in general, Windows 7 came with a lot of sound themes too, and I myself really liked that. That was very intuitive in Microsoft that included Windows 7 because it gave people the option to really personalize their computer with not just a wallpaper, but they can also change the sounds. Um, they can use, well, if you think about it, anyone can use whatever sounds they want in Windows, but for Microsoft to step up and give people really nice sounds for whatever thing they wanted instead of the default sounds, it was pretty nice for Microsoft to have that. But Windows 8, you don't get that option to get more system sounds unless you upgraded from Windows 7 to Windows 8.
Yeah, that was another thing I noticed was I actually did a long time ago now is I actually upgraded from Windows 7 to Windows 8. I'm running on a clean install now, but I'd get all those sound themes, and the one I always used was Cityscape because I thought it sounded good. But that might be a problem with some people who like customization, where it's kind of cut off with Windows 8. So our next topic is this is something I have a problem with is fairly heavy and uses more RAM than Windows 7.
So in Windows 8, in some aspects, is that sure you're freeing up a lot of resources from your desktop, especially since you don't have the full-on Aero Glass experience. However, there are some other areas where Windows 8 does hog resources, and I myself, I have a desktop PC here. It's got 16 gigabytes of RAM in it, and Windows 8 itself is running pretty fast. However, it does have some issues with trying to, I guess you could say, allocate memory to certain applications. There are some things that do run slow, Photoshop especially. See, I'm running Photoshop CS3. Now it might be old, however, it should be able to run as fast or just as fast as it did in Windows 7, and it did run pretty great in Windows 7. I loved it in Windows 7, but Windows 8 doesn't really reserve enough memory for it to run fast and fluid for my liking. However, I will say that Windows 8 does have a pretty good startup time. I really love the startup time in Windows 8 because in Windows 7, it would probably take me 17 seconds to load to get to the login screen. But Windows 8, it might take me around 8 or 10 seconds to load to get to the lock screen. So even though startup time has never been a killer feature for me, I really do like how Windows 8 does trim the fat off of boot time.
Yeah, I also noticed the trim of the Windows boot time and shutdown. I do like it because it is faster and makes me a little bit more productive. But for my memory, from what I've noticed, is right now I have the new Task Manager open, which is actually pretty cool. But right now I'm using 57% of my RAM. I have 8 gigs, so I'm using 4.6 gigs right now. To give you an idea of what I have open, I have a few tabs open in Chrome. I have a few windows open in File Explorer, a few in Notepad, I have Remote Desktop open. I have Skype, and then I have Photoshop CS6. That's using quite a bit of RAM, over half my RAM for that. So I do think it's kind of a memory hog. But so is Windows 7, but from what I've noticed is at idle, Windows 8 actually uses about 200 megs more RAM than Windows 7. So this was something that'll bug a lot of people, is no search feature in the Windows Store.
I really hate this problem. I don't know if anyone else has the same issue with Windows 8, especially when they go to the Windows Store to download their applications and what have you, or apps I should call them. You can't search for any specific app. You have to browse by whatever category that Microsoft is giving you. You have to try and go through the top rated, top free, or top paid apps. I don't know how they organize that because I don't really visit the Windows Store, but the one thing that I do not like about the Windows Store is that there is no search feature to say, I want to search for a Facebook app. You can't do that. You have to go to, what is it, the social area of everything? And you have to try and go through the top free or something like that and try and find a proper Facebook app that works for you.
Yeah. The Windows Store, I've had things where I've tried looking for them and I just can't find them. I mean, to go in about the Windows Store, they don't even have an official Twitter app yet. Of course, someone made it, but Twitter doesn't have a real app. Neither does Facebook. So the Windows Store is still kind of pretty small and not big in software terms. But anyway, now we're done with the bad stuff, and now we're on to the good stuff about
Yeah.
Windows 8 after that long list. So the first good thing we noticed about Windows 8 was great dual screens.
Yeah, that's the one awesome thing I like about Windows 8 is, yes, even though Microsoft is copying Apple, some people are going to sit there and say Apple copied Microsoft with the multi-monitor support. However, I do like how that Windows 8, when you have a desktop background and you have a certain theme playing, you don't have the same wallpaper displayed on both monitors. It swaps wallpapers for both monitors. So one monitor can have one image, the other monitor's got a different image depending on what you have. If you have just one image set as your theme, then yeah, it's going to display on both screens. But if you have a theme with more than one wallpaper that are different, then I really enjoy the support Windows 8 has for multi-monitor. So um, now if you're using an iFinity setup, like with 3 monitors or 4 or more, um, I'm not quite sure about how that's supported, but I'm pretty sure Windows 8 does support that fairly well. Again, I don't know this officially, but I'm just kind of assuming that Microsoft is going to take that step and say, Windows 8 is going to have really great multi-monitor support, and so far it does. I really love it.
Yeah, well, a few weeks ago, before the screen broke, I had a Dell UltraSharp 19-inch, and I'd have that mounted right here to where the MacBook is behind Dan's video feed, but it ended up breaking. But it was really cool because I was a little bit, I could put windows over there, like a Chrome window or something, or Pandora or something to see and check, or maybe even this video feed if I still have that monitor. And then I could have the start date on both screens if I chose to do so. And then you could have one screen go into the Metro mode and one screen stay in the desktop mode. That was something pretty cool. Now, this is a 19-inch Acer monitor, and I will throw this in here with that. This has a resolution of 1600 by 900. Now for the snap feature, which is kind of similar to Gadget Bar but not as good, where you can snap whether to a portion of your screen and then your desktop to the rest, is you have to have a 1366 by 768 resolution screen, and 15-inch laptops have those, but if you have something like my MacBook right here, it's 1280 by 800 or something along those lines, and it can't do it. So anyway, that's it for the dual screen. Now, this is something we've kind of went over, which is still really good, is it's fast.
Yeah, Windows 8 overall, even though it can be a bit of a memory hog, I really do think Windows 8 has a lot of speed improvements over Windows 7. It could be, again, because of the dropped support for Windows Aero and the glass features, but I really do think that overall, Windows 8 has pretty I don't know what to say here because we've kind of covered this. I'm just going to say that Windows 8 is fast because overall, again, with Windows 7, Microsoft has given Windows 8 a really nice speed boost overall. So, yeah, I don't really know much else, Gavin.
Yeah, another thing I will throw in there is my desktop, which again is a 6-core AMD with 8 gigs RAM. When I ran Geekbench on it, when I had Windows 7 on it with Service Pack 1 and all the updates, I had a Geekbench score of around 8,500, which is pretty high, but it's sad that some of the new iMacs with quad-core i5s can beat this thing out. But something I did with the Geekbench under Windows 8 is I found about 1,000-point increase in the speeds, and something I will add in there is the base is 1,000 in the Geekbench score, and that's equivalent to a 1.8 GHz PowerMac G5 single core, or single processor, whatever one. So it's 8 times faster if you never knew that. So anyway, our next one, which should be in every single thing in Windows from here till eternity, is support for old apps.
So for Windows 8, if you have especially Windows RT, which is Windows runtime, it is like Windows 8, but it's not Windows 8. I don't know how Microsoft got the idea for that. However, if you have a Microsoft Surface RT, which obviously comes with Windows RT, you don't have the support for legacy desktop applications. So you have a Surface RT and you're running in the modern UI, but for some reason you still have the desktop there. And honestly, I don't see why Microsoft bothered putting desktop in Windows RT, because if you don't have native support for desktop applications, legacy desktop applications, it's kind of counterintuitive of how Windows RT runs. Because if you don't have support for legacy desktop applications, there is no real need for the desktop to be in Windows 8 or Windows RT. Sorry. Um, However, in Windows 8 and Windows 8 Pro, you do have that kind of support, which is really great for those of us that still live on the desktop, myself included. I live on the desktop even right now. I've barely used the modern UI since I've upgraded to Windows 8. And if I could show you, I would show you the applications I have currently pinned to my modern UI start screen. However, I've only got the one app currently pinned to it, and that's the desktop. Because if I do have to end up going to the modern UI for anything, I just have the desktop right there, and I just go back to the desktop, and I have nothing to worry about.
Yeah, something that is weird about Surface RT is the only reason it has a desktop apparently is for the new Office RT. I don't know if they still call it Office 2013 or Office RT, whatever. But they actually make it open in the desktop mode, so all they really did was port it from the desktop and then recode it into all the whole Metro thing. So it still makes zero sense. But
Yeah, it makes no sense at all.
yeah. Anyway, our next one is great network stuff. This consists of like speeds and connections. We'll get into it.
So the one thing, or at least several things I've noticed about Windows 8 in terms of connecting to a network is it doesn't really take it much time to search for a network, to connect to a network, and to stay connected to that network. Um, Especially if you're connected to a known network, where if it knows the password to it, doesn't have to be, interrupted to put the password in or anything. Um, it doesn't really take Windows 8 that much time to connect to a network, even right after you start it up. When you look at your lock screen, you'll notice that the network icon, if you still have it pinned to there, it doesn't really take Windows 8 much time at all to connect to your network. So I think that the way Windows 8 handles networking is really fast. And that kind of goes back to Windows 8 itself being fast, which is why I kind of held off on that topic there for a second, because I think Windows 8 overall is a speed demon. I don't know if I want to say that because people might get mad for saying that, but over Windows 7, over Windows Vista, I really think Windows 8 is considerably faster in terms of like network speeds, online gaming, especially if you play like with Steam, especially. It's kind of fast with that. Even though Valve themselves don't like Windows 8, I have noticed considerably faster speeds with Windows 8 with networking and you're playing online games and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so what I noticed with Windows 8 and networking is my server's on the other side of my room. And it has gigabit Ethernet, and so does my desktop. Now, whenever I'd go to copy files and I had the Ethernet cable plugged in and the wireless connected, it would always like to send the file over the wireless and not the LAN. However, Windows 8 seems to find out that it would rather use the Ethernet connection, so I get like 70 megabytes a second speeds instead of 3 or 4 over the wireless. So I do notice that wireless networking is a bit faster and streamlined, and something I'll throw in here is with the USB, this would probably be safe for another topic, but I'll add it, is when I use a USB flash drive, it actually seems to copy at faster speeds than under Windows 7. So I think that kind of has the same concept as the networking, but I don't know. Anyway, the next topic is the ribbon interface to File Explorer.
This one is actually my most favorite topic about what we've been covering so far. If you've used Microsoft Office 2007, I know that's kind of going way back in the day, But if you start off with Microsoft Office 2007 and have used Office 2010, you may have noticed that the top of the window had a bar or a ribbon, as Microsoft calls it, that has quick links and access options to edit things, gain access to things, and so on and so forth. What Microsoft did with Windows 8, especially with File Explorer, or I guess we can still call it Windows Explorer, but whatever. Um, Microsoft has included the ribbon interface with File Explorer, so I really do think it's a great upgrade to File Explorer, or at least Windows Explorer, whatever you want to call it, because it gives you more options right at the top of the window. You don't have to bother right-clicking or going to the folder and search layout options and so on and so forth. It's all right there at the top of your window. And if you don't want it there, you can always click the little triangle in the upper right-hand corner of the window and minimize that so it's out of the way and it's not cluttering up any necessary window space for you. But overall, I really think that with Microsoft adding this to Windows 8, at least the ribbon interface to File Explorer, it makes things faster, not through the operating system, but for the user, because you don't have to worry about, okay, how do I right-click on this, or where do I need to click here? It's all right there in the ribbon, no worries.
Yeah, and that was another thing is the ribbon interface does come from obviously Office 2007 and 2010, and Windows 7 they actually had some programs like WordPad and Paint and maybe a few others that actually started to incorporate the ribbon interface. But in Windows 8 they completely rehauled it and made it all nice and clean, and it does make it a lot nicer to navigate and find out. Another thing is something they added with the new ribbon interface is the up button. This was missing in Windows 7, and I don't know if it was in Windows Vista or not. But if you went back from, if you went, for an example, from your downloads folder to your C Windows folder, if you press back, you go straight to the downloads, but if you want to go straight to the root of your C drive, you can just press this up button and it goes back. I don't know if Vista had it, but I know Windows XP had it. So our next topic will be ISO mounting, and this is a really cool one.
Yeah, Gavin especially is going to know a lot more about ISO mounting than I would. But for me, I have been using my Windows downloads from DreamSpark, and since I'm in college right now and I'm doing infotech, I've got access to a DreamSpark Premium account. And what I've done is I downloaded for, say, Windows Server 2012, for example, data center. And Windows 8 especially has support to mount the ISO to either a VHD or even up to a DVD if you want to burn it through there and make it a bootable disk or even a flash drive if you want to. Windows 8 kind of has it easier than Windows 7 or even Windows Vista, because Windows Vista, I don't remember if it came with it or not, but I know Windows Vista did not have any form of native ISO mounting. You kind of had to download a third-party tool to do that. But I do know that with Windows 7, if you had downloaded an ISO, there was an option through Windows Explorer to burn the ISO to a DVD or a flash drive if you wanted, or you could mount that ISO image to a VHD.
Yeah, that was another thing I do know that's really cool about ISO mounting. Windows 7 with the ISO burning tool, because I know Windows 7 did have it, is it was nice when I'd have an ISO and I needed to burn it to a disk without having to go download some other third-party program like Image Burner, which is still a really good program. But a good example with the ISO mounting is Dan laid a good one down with DreamSpark when you download Windows ISOs for different editions of Windows and so on. Now, something that did happen is I have a Dell Optiplex GX620. I use it as a DVR kind of thing for the TV, and I needed this program software called Hopdodge WinTV V7, I believe. And in order to install it, it says you must have a CD no matter what inside the computer. But with Windows 8, I could just mount the ISO and it thinks the real CD was in there. This is also good for games if you have dual layer discs or something, like if you have Call of Duty or something, and you don't want to burn a disc but you want to mount it to install it, it mounts it just fine. So next one that does go different, way different from Windows 7 is the lock screen.
With Windows 8, now if you are used to using Windows 7 or Windows Vista or any version of Windows really up to Windows 8, you're used to just booting up the PC and going to the login screen, clicking on your user picture and typing in your password if you have one, and logging into the desktop. But with Windows 8, they kind of did it better, I think, where they introduced you to the lock screen especially. So you're booting up your PC or tablet, depending on what you've got, and instead of going to the login screen, you just got this nice lock screen, as they call it, with a background of your choice. It's got the date, time, and any messages and updates that you have for your certain applications like messaging, people, your mail applications, even got the weather if you wanted that. You've even got notifications for your battery if you're on a battery, your network connection, stuff like that. So a lot of people have mentioned to me that they don't like the start screen because they don't know how to get to the login screen. And really, Microsoft has kind of made it a little bit simple to get to the login. All you have to do is either press the space bar or really any key on the keyboard that I know of, or just take your mouse and left click on the screen. It should drag up by itself. You can log in with whatever account you're using, type in your password if you have one, and then you're on your start screen, I should say, or your desktop, depending on what your settings are.
Yeah, the lock screen is nice. Something that they actually demonstrated back in, was it the summer of 2011?
Yeah, I think so. Summer
That
or fall.
yeah, that they had the developers preview, and they showed the new concept with the start screen and how on the lock screen how it would show you like your calendar and stuff. And I guess that'd be good for some people, but something that does happen is that your calendar app, if you have your messaging app linked with the calendar app, it'll actually say all your Facebook friends' birthdays in the thing, and if you really care or not. Of course, you can go hide it, but that's just one of the things that happens quite a bit. And then it shows your mail and temperature, and it's just kind of a quick look at it and turn it off to see what's new. So this is another cool one, which I kind of went over with
Yeah,
the networking stuff. What?
I was just saying, with the People app, or at least with the Calendar app, I should say, is with the Facebook birthdays. I really find that kind of awesome because there are some people I do know, and if those people are watching this video, I am sorry if I forgot your birthday, but hopefully with the Mail app for Windows 8, I will remember that birthday. So I really do like how in the upper right-hand corner of my screen, whether PC I'm using that has Windows 8 on it, if I'm sitting around working around 12 o'clock noon, I think, it was when it normally brings up the notifications of tomorrow or the next day is so-and-so's birthday. So I really do like that.
Yeah, I do too. The next thing is fast PNP, and that's plug and play with USB.
So it was one thing that me and Gavin talked about one day, is that the support Windows 8 has for hot swapping USB devices, like say a flash drive or a webcam or something like that, something that doesn't need to require you telling it that you want to eject it, you just pull out the device itself. Now, some people might say that you should not do that. You should tell them what system you're ready to eject the device. But I myself have not had any such problems. However, we should warn that it's not going to be the same case for everybody, for any USB device. However, I do think Windows 8 has a lot of improvements upon hot swapping devices or plug and play devices.
Yeah, that's another thing is like my mouse I have here. I had a better one, but the little receiver broke. But whenever I'd plug into Windows 7, I'd have to wait probably a few minutes for it to work, and then if I unplugged and plugged it into another port, I'd have to wait the same amount of time as the first time for it to re-download the drivers and everything. And where in Windows 8, all I have to do is plug it in instantly, and it works no matter what port it's in. So it's really nice, and I think they did a good job with it, and it does help out quite a bit when you're trying to copy something to a flash drive real quick. If you're off to go to a meeting or something, you need it, all you do is plug it in and it works. So then our last pro is the new system sounds.
I myself love the new system sounds, honestly. Um, Over Windows Vista and Windows 7, or if you want to go even deeper into history, Windows XP, the system sounds that Windows 8 has, even though there aren't, any special ones that Windows 7 have, uh, overall, I do think that Windows 8 has really nice system sounds. And that might be a really ridiculous topic to cover for some people, but for me, I really do like the sounds. They're calming to me. If I make it a small error, I don't have a error box coming up going ping or something like that. Just a nice little warm noise, and it's telling me that I got an error or something like that. So yeah, Windows 8, the system sounds, I really think they're nice. And again, for some people that might not be a big issue, but for me that was a big notice that I had.
Yeah, something cool I do like about them, and they've done this sort of since Vista, is although I do like the Windows XP startup sound in 98 and 2000, all those were really good startup sounds, and I really like them. But what they did with everything from probably Vista to the present is they made them short and sweet. And of course, they didn't change them very much from Vista to 7, but 7 to 8 they did make changes, and I do think it sounds really well. So,
Yeah. So I really do think that with the startup sound especially, they kept the same startup sound between Vista 7 and 8. It might not be a big issue, but they could probably change it up a little bit maybe. But overall, I really do like how clean the sounds are compared to Windows Vista and 7.
so now we go on to the Surface RT. So we're kind of doing this because we don't have any write-ups or anything. We're just going on our own with this one. But the first one we can probably all talk about the most is no software in the Microsoft Store.
So overall, if you buy a Surface RT, or at least a Surface with Windows RT, I don't know what they're calling it. Either way, it has Windows RT on it. Uh, the device itself, however, I do think Microsoft is kind of gouging the price a little bit. You know, sure, it has a USB port on it, and it has, the vapor mag casing and the little flip kickstand. However, I really do agree with Chris Perillo. He made a comment about on Facebook stating that the Surface RT is like I think he said it was a MacBook Air alternative,
Oh,
and the Surface Pro is an iPad alternative or a poor one at best. And I really do agree with that because when he unboxed and played around with uh, the Surface with Windows RT, uh, the cool app its community wanted to use was, since Windows 8 and Windows RT are both supposed to be, supporting HTML natively, cut the rope, and all the other Microsoft Store apps are supposed to be HTML capable, and cut the rope really ran child on what they really did. And it came with what, 2 gigs of RAM?
I think somewhere around there. Wasn't fancy.
So either way, it should have been able to handle cut the rope just fine. And Chris even pulled out his iPad, which I think was the third gen iPad at the time,
Yeah.
and it ran cut the rope just fine. And the iPad third gen has considerably less resources than the Surface with Windows RT has. So honestly, if you were going to go out and buy a Surface device, I probably wouldn't buy the Surface with Windows RT. If it wasn't just because of the HTML and the lag that it has with that, but if you run legacy desktop applications, you don't have support for those in Windows RT whatsoever. Now, some people might have hacks for that, but really, you're spending a lot of money on a quote nice device. So if you're really wanting to have a tablet for Windows 8 and want to have legacy desktop application support, I would go with the Surface Pro.
Yeah. The Surface. I do think that if I was to go in the market for either the Surface RT, even the Nexus 10, or the iPad, I'd probably be walking home away with the iPad. It's just support. There's if I type an app, there's anything for it. Under Windows, there isn't all that much, and then like how the Office thing is, it uses the Windows 8 legacy desktop, and you can't do much. All you do is run Word and stuff in it, and it's just pointless. And although they did try to come out and be the cool kids with the price on it's just way too high for what it is. And then also they did have a cool concept with the keyboard idea, but you have to pay another $130 on top of that for a keyboard. I don't see that working out so well.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous that they charge a hundred and some odd dollars just to have a attachable keyboard. When for an iPad especially, all you have to do is go to some computer outlet store or even Apple itself and buy a Bluetooth keyboard for $60 or $70. It might be a lot of money, but if you don't want to spend the $130 some odd dollars for the touch cover, type cover for the Windows or Microsoft Surface, I should say, you're kind of saving money just by buying an iPad and buying a Bluetooth keyboard. However, some people might actually like the Windows RT or Surface Pro.
Yeah, what else is there about it?
Um, all I know about the Surface Pro is that it's thicker than the Surface with Windows RT. It has considerably low battery life for what it is. I think it has around 3.5 to 4 hours of battery life on standard use. So if you're sitting there running Photoshop or something like that on it, using a lot of resources, your battery life is going to be almost nothing. So the Surface Pro, yes, has a lot more to it than the Surface Windows RT. However, battery life and overall performance is kind of choppy at best. I read a report or an article by Walt Mossberg, and he tested out the Surface Pro. And knowing Walt Mossberg, he would not give false information. I really doubt that any of us in the geeky community would doubt Walt Mossberg. However, I do not agree with a lot that he has stated about the Surface Pro. Microsoft has a lot of work to do to make it an okay device, but I personally am not going to go out and spend $1,000 on a device that's going to turn out to be a $1,000 paperweight doorstop.
Yeah, if I was in the market of comparing the Surface Pro versus even the 11-inch MacBook Air, not because I'm an Apple fanboy, but I would probably just walk away with the MacBook Air because I knew it would still run and it has a keyboard and everything I need. And it's not all that much more. And then another thing we can go into is space. This is a bad topic for the Surfaces.
Yeah, that's glad you reminded me of that too, Gavin. The Surface with Windows RT, I believe, was a 32 gigabyte device. However, you only had available space of, I think, 15 gigabytes. So already half or more of your space on the Surface Windows RT is already being chewed up by the operating system, by backup of the modern mod app. So really, Microsoft is kind of shooting themselves in the foot by stating that Surface with Windows RT has 32 gigabytes. Yes, it does, but however, you're getting 16 gigabytes or less as reserve space. And honestly, if you're someone that's going to be doing like file storage, or maybe even some photo editing, music editing, or I don't know, if you're using a lot of files on the Surface Windows RT, you're not going to have space unless you have a flash drive attached to it. And even then, that'd be kind of counterintuitive because you're going to have a device and you're not going to have much leeway of transporting without allowing you to move or breaking that device. But the Surface Pro, however, it's 4 gigabytes, and excuse me, it's just ridiculous. But you only get around, I think, 29 gigabytes of that space to you. So again, if you're going to be storing a lot of files, images, and music onto the Surface Pro or even Surface Windows RT, you're not going to have enough space for everything unless you have no device added to it.
Yeah, the Surface Pro, even with all the space it has, I would much rather. I could just see more people buying iPads again, even though the Surface Pro might have the i5 or be a real desktop computer. It's just that people these days are starting to navigate away from laptops, although I kind of need one still for Photoshop and stuff. But it's just everything's on the iPad now, and it's so little on resources. An iOS install uses what, like 2 gigs on the iPad?
Something like that.
Yeah, it's really lightweight, and it's not all that bad.
And another thing too, with Apple, it's been rumored, and I think it's been confirmed. I'm not quite sure on that yet, but I think Apple is going to be releasing a 128 gigabyte iPad. In fact, I think Apple's actually already confirmed it.
Yeah, I think they did
I,
earlier in the
I,
week.
I haven't been following on the news that much, but Apple's releasing a 128 gigabyte Apple iPad. We already know it's by Apple, so um, if you compare the Surface Pro, it's around, I think it's like $899 plus
Yeah,
buying a touch cover for it, so it's around $1,000 and only having so much capabilities with it. However, Apple's releasing the 128 gigabyte iPad, and it's not even going to be anywhere near the price of the Surface Pro. So already Apple is beating a competitive device.
yeah, the iPad definitely has it going for it now. I mean, even the Android tablet stuff, they're on the cheap side of things, but they still do better than probably what any Microsoft Surface can do.
Well, not only that, but for example, the Nexus 10 or Nexus 7 even, if you have any of the Nexus products, you're going to have access to the same store, and you're also going to have a lot more uh, apps to do things with, for if you want to play some casual games or maybe do some productivity. You're going to have a lot more apps through the Android store or through the Apple store than going to the Microsoft store, or at least I should say Windows App Store. Um, I really think that at the moment it might not be a great idea to buy a Surface, whether if you're wanting to buy a Surface with Windows RT or Surface Pro. Um, if you really want a good bang for your buck, I personally would probably stick to using the iPad. And you know, I got an iPad right here, plugged in right now. But if I were to to compare the Surface with the iPad, and I know Chris Burlow has done several videos on comparing them, and people kind of got mad about that because I don't know. However, I do honestly believe that the iPad is the dominant tablet out there right now.
Yeah, I would have an iPad over anything, just just because everything works with it. Although I could be fine with an Android tablet, but Microsoft, you're just asking to get screwed over by it. And something that happened was like the Kin phone. It was a little tiny phone that was supposed to be like for little kids, and I think AT&T pulled it. What? Not even 2 months after Microsoft started selling them.
Yeah, I think they pulled them off a month or two after they launched it because the Surface was just terrible.
Yeah,
And it really was a joke, wasn't it?
yeah. I think in the future it's just going to happen the same thing with the Surface. They're just so many people are going to return them, like the Surface RTs. They're sold out at the beginning, but people just started returning them.
Right.
So I bet it's going to happen again, and they're probably just going to have to kill the product.
But, overall with Windows 8, I really do think it might be potential for but in the next version of Windows.
Yeah. Which
If you look,
apparently. Oh,
go ahead.
alright. Apparently, the next update for all the Windows apps and Windows Phone and everything is supposed to be codenamed Windows Blue. And originally it's supposed to be like kind of a service pack for Windows 8, but they decided to make it for all the products, so like Office 365, Hotmail, stuff like that, and that's what they're doing with the whole new Microsoft Blue update, I think is what they're calling it. So maybe we'll see some better stuff brought into that in the future, but maybe not. Who knows?
Yeah, the one thing I'm not gonna like about future versions of Windows, and it's just rumored, I can't confirm this, but it's one rumor that kind of scares me, is that with the next version of Windows, um, it's not going to be, quote, licensed to you with a product key or anything. It's going to be a yearly subscription where you pay for, like, Office 365, you pay $99 a year for that, and that's for the full Office suite. And it's been rumored that they're going to do that with pretty much all of their services that require licensing. So for Windows in general, they're going to be, instead of going out to the store and copying Windows, they're going to have you purchase a yearly subscription for Windows. So however much that's going to cost, I don't know, but we can expect it to be kind of an outrageous price. If there's a Microsoft software, they're going to get money out of the software. So yeah, if it's a true story that Microsoft is going to make the next Windows a rent or a unit subscription, those of us that can't really afford the $99 a year for an operating system, it's likely to be something that, you know.
Yeah, it's gonna be all bad. Something like with the Office 365 that they do today is you can either go buy Office 2013 for $149 or whatever it is for the home student and keep that copy for the rest of your life, or you get the 365, although you might get all the new updates and everything, but if you're paying $99 for that every year, if you think 10 years you're paying $1,000 for something that you could have spent at the time you bought it $150, never had to deal with it again.
And see, that's why I really like how Apple kind of handles that. I mean, I know you can buy Microsoft Office for OS 10, but if you buy a Mac or go to the App Store for your Mac, you can get Pages, Numbers, spreadsheets, stuff like that. I really do think that Apple is kind of doing it better than Microsoft because each of the apps standalone costs only $20. And if you think about that, if you buy Microsoft Office Word just standalone, it's like 50 or 60 bucks for the same thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, we're gonna have to put a wrap up on the end of this video, so thank you guys for watching.
Right, for a long time about this.
Yeah. Long video, so I guess we'll talk to you guys later and just look out for the next video.